I went from living in a zero-sum world where there are, for someone to win, someone has to lose, or for a raise to happen, there's got to be money in a budget, to this infinite world of abundance.
All right, we've got Jay Chekansky here. We've known each other for a while. We've done deals together.
Mm-hmm.
We've made money. We've lost money together.
We've competed against each other in deals.
We have?
Mm-hmm. And then I wholesaled it to you.
Oh, yeah, you rascal. That was a good story. And then we about lost money on that one, touch and go. But yeah, I know you. Why don't you give us a background? Who were you before you started investing in real estate?
Yeah, so I went the rich dad, poor dad route. Went to college, got a master's degree in mechanical engineering, did product development in the auto industry for 10 plus years. I've got 11 U.S. patents at this point.
You do?
Yeah.
What?
They don't pay me anything. The company I work for owns them all, but it's just kind of cool. It's a feather in the cap and
nice.
Some plaques on the wall. And just got to the point where didn't like it anymore, used my forehead trying to beat a doorway into a concrete wall into the next version of life for me. And it's got to the point where I walked into my boss's office on a Friday, my engineering manager walked in on a Friday afternoon and said, "Dude, I'm good here." And he's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "I'm good. Not coming back on Monday."
You just left.
No, I put in a 2-week notice and did things the right way. But
yeah.
Wow. And from there, took a month and a half off, figured out what I wanted to be when I grew up, and bought my first house to flip after that.
Wow. When was this?
2015.
Wow.
So 10 years.
Okay. Tell me about that. What was that? What did that turn out to be? So
that was a 2-bed, 1-bath house in Hendersonville, North Carolina. I was living in Asheville at the time. Bought the house for $67,000 through a wholesaler.
Jeez.
With seller finance.
Wow. So
I think it was $25K out of pocket for the down payment. Had about $25K in repairs. Did almost all the work myself. I was while I was working on that house, I could get just enough of the Wi-Fi signal from the elementary school next door to stream the first 180 episodes of the Bigger Pockets podcast. so I'm listening to that while I'm working on this house, and ended up making $33,000 on that house flip.
Nice.
That was number one.
Heck yeah. So your first one was a success.
Yep.
And then just walk me through the next steps after that. How did things grow from there?
So houses 3 and 4 didn't go as smooth. I had recently I had a house under contract that had a bad foundation, and I backed out of that contract because I didn't know how to fix it. And then a guy I knew ended up coming in behind me, buying the house, fixing the foundation, so on and so forth. He made $60,000 or $70,000 on that flip.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm never walking away from a bad foundation again. I'm going to figure this out. Well, I bought the biggest house with the biggest foundation problem, and no one would work on it.
Oh, no.
So if you're flipping houses to make money, you've got to go buy another house to flip to make money. So now I've got absolutely all of my money tied up in these 2 houses.
Oh, my gosh.
Can't get house number 3 fixed. House number 4 was scheduled to close, didn't close, sat on the market, so on and so forth. And needed to sell the house to do something, and that is where I turned into my first house seller finance sale. And that was a game changer for me.
Interesting. You have been a huge resource for me whenever I have issues about seller finance or trying to structure offers, owner finance, and I need just that little bit of extra creative advice. You're the guy that I call. So why don't you just tell people what is seller financing and how did that deal turn out?
Yeah. So with seller financing, basically what you're doing as the seller is you are exchanging your equity position. You are, instead of getting a lump sum payment for that equity position, you are receiving payments with interest over time on that. So instead of the buyer having to go and qualify for a Fannie Freddie bank loan, they just have to meet your terms.
Interesting. why would I do that when I could just get all of this cash up front from the sale?
Usually because the most I would make in a pure flip is the least I will make with a seller finance exit. The difference being the money comes in over time. So the way that looks is, and a lot of it depends on the underlying finance that you have in place. So the longer term your underlying finance is, and what I mean by that is if you take a property subject to, there's underlying finance. Most of what I do is I use private capital from private lenders to purchase the property. And if that's 2-year money, 5-year money, 15-year money, 30-year money, dictates how long I'm able to hold the seller finance promissory note on the other side of the sale. But basically, if you flip a house and you sell it retail and your buyer comes in with a bank loan, you receive all the, whatever you're owed up front minus whatever you owe. When you sell a house with seller finance, I take a down payment now, right? That usually looks like $25,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. And then I make money every month on the spread between what my buyer pays me and what I owe my lender. And that might be $600, $700, $800, $1,100, $1,200, $1,500 a month, whatever that is. So if you hold, $1,500 a month times 48 months or whatever is, my cash flow. And then on the other side of that, I hold a promissory note, and that promissory note has, it's a paper asset that holds value. So that means if, say, just real simple math here, I borrow $100,000 to purchase and rehab a house, and I sell that house for $200,000, and I get a $25,000 down payment, I have a promissory note with equity of about $75,000. That make sense?
Yeah. Interesting. I love it.
Yeah.
We've done a couple deals like this together, and I love being able to take properties that we typically wouldn't be able to do anything with and purchase them and offer it for sale, seller finance. And this is your primary strategy.
Correct.
Just talk me through why you're doing that versus the traditional flipping, renting. Why would you sell something seller finance? Why don't you just rent it? I mean, what's your thought process behind that?
Yeah. So there's pros and cons to every strategy, right? When you flip houses, you get all of your cash up front, but there's a big tax bill at the end of the year. When you hold rental properties, there's tax advantages to that. Sometimes there's cash flow, but the cons are you have tenants and you have toilets and you have people living pretty tough on your properties, right? So you've got turnovers. When you seller finance, it's an installment sale. You only pay taxes in that year on the principal that you receive and the interest that you receive. So that's a benefit. You don't have tenants. You have borrowers that own these properties. So when the toilet gets plugged or termites have destroyed the front half of the house, they don't call you.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a great vehicle for cash flow. It's a great way to generate, net worth.
Yeah. I've got a rental that is just totally destroyed by termites right now. They're tearing it up, and it's a nightmare. So I get it. That the idea of not having to deal with that is attractive.
Yep.
So just walk me through what does your business look like today? He's primarily doing these seller finance notes. How are you finding these? Walk me through a typical deal that you're doing. Where are you looking? Things like that.
Yeah. So we're using, similar lead generation strategies to most other folks doing direct to seller marketing. So I've had good luck with a mix of direct mail, SMS, some PPC, and we're looking to buy things at a discount. We're also buying off of the MLS listed properties, and making deals pencil that way. So typical deal structure is we'll get a property under contract that we are able to purchase and rehab and be under the 65 or at most 70%, all in to final value. And these are C+, B-, B grade homes, and starter homes typically And basically what we're looking to do here is juxtapose people. Do you want to pay $1,600 a month to rent, or do you want to pay $1,600 a month to buy? And if you're in that position, what are you going to do?
Buy.
You're going to buy, right?
Yeah.
So it does really good, right? It's good for the neighborhood, creates homeowners, pride of home ownership. It gives people the opportunity to become homeowners and the step up in quality of life that provides. And so we'll borrow, 100% of the proceeds to purchase and 100% of the proceeds to rehab these properties. And at the end of that process, when this house is fixed up, our lenders are secured 65-70% loan to value. They know going in that we will be reselling this house with seller finance with what is called a mortgage wrap. And what that fancy term, the private lender first mortgage or first deed of trust, depending on what state we're in, remains in position. We're still the borrower. We resell that house to an owner-occupant. That owner-occupant has a sizable down payment. That's usually 10 to 15% of the purchase price. They go through an underwriting process where we verify their ability to repay that loan. All right. I don't want to sell somebody a house that they can't afford and then have to take it back. I want these people to be homeowners for the long haul.
Yeah.
And then, typical house closing for the sale to the owner occupant. Down payment comes to us. Monthly payment comes to us. We still pay our private lender every month. So it's a great vehicle for cash flow for folks that have capital, but they don't want to be doing what I'm doing. They just want the money to work for them.
You're doing the messy part.
I'm the operator in the deal. And this also means that, for our private lenders, if something goes sideways with our end buyer, that's for me to take care of, not for them.
Yeah.
My payments continue to be made to my private lender. We work out whatever we have to work out on the other side and get things running smooth again.
Yeah. Have you always been entrepreneurial, or was there a noticeable event that sparked it?
I think I was entrepreneurial, went to college and got a job like I was supposed to, hid that in the shadows. And then that guy came out that Friday in March of 2015 and said, "Dude, I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good. I'm going to start my own business."
And then you took a month to be like, what am I going to do?
Yeah. Yes and no. I think I've always been creative and wanted to challenge, and typical guy. Like I want to conquer new stuff.
Yeah. What sparked your interest in real estate?
Needed to make money, and went and looked at a house, and I was like, I can fix this. So I did it. That was my criteria for the first house.
I can do this.
I can fix this.
Knowing what you know today, what were some limiting beliefs that held you back in the beginning?
I thought I had to do 20 deals before I could attract private money to do deals. So that was a big one. And I think that it was deal number 3. I borrowed some private money for part of it, backed by 50% of my own money. And then something amazing happened. I had all of my money tied up in 2 houses and had to keep going. So I had to learn how to, attract and deploy outside capital.
Yeah.
In a business model that was going to work.
What's been some of your the best ways that you've been able to raise capital, whether it be networks, people that you're talking to? Like, what's the secret sauce?
I think the secret sauce is you pay people back.
Yeah.
And on time every month.
You do what you say
you're going to do.
Yeah.
And people talk. And that has been the best source of referrals for me is my existing private lenders. And there's some folks that have been very loyal to me, and I've been very loyal to them to the tune of 40 plus deals with private lenders through the years. And there's some other great places and great resources, and it depends on what you're looking for, right? So there's people that are looking to lend short term and want a velocity of money, and then there's other people that they may be working full time. They may be of retirement age. They may be retired and just want their money to work for them. So great places for that are local real estate club meetings or just attending some different private money lending and note conferences.
Interesting. For somebody who's not in those circles, like I don't have a conference that I know of to go to. where's some of the best places to find people who could be private lenders? Because you say this, it sounds like this like mystical person who do I know that's got money? Like, how would you go about knowing what you know now, 2015 Jay, if you could tell him, like, here's how you raise money, what would you tell him?
Two things. One, if I go back 10 years, I would have been documenting, videoing, recording, and putting out everything that I was doing much better than I have.
Yeah.
And the second thing is just refine your pitch to something concise. And when people ask you what you do, you tell them.
Yeah.
In a way that piques their interest. There's lots of money in lots of circles everywhere you go. Mm-hmm. Lending isn't for everybody. There's like lots of people in California with a lot of capital that are investing in syndications because they want, equity multiples and 18% IRRs and stuff like that. And there's lots of other people that want 10% working for them every month. Set it and forget it. I'm going to go jump on a cruise ship and I'm going to go enjoy my life.
Yeah. Interesting. What's been your best deal?
I'll share two of my favorite deals. I don't know if they've been my best yet.
I mean, the best is yet to come. Tell me one of your favorites.
All right, the favorite deal was a deal I did with you. So we bought.
Is it the mobile home lot?
We bought two mobile home parks. We bought two mobile home parks with seller financing, and the seller had bought it with seller financing. So I met with her. I had my assistant send a very simple letter to her. Mm-hmm. It said, "Hey, so and so, we know that tenants and toilets are a real headache. If you ever want to sell your property at X, give me a call."
Yeah.
She called. So I met with her. She bought these two mobile home parks because she wanted to be a real estate investor and she wanted cash flow. But what she had was a job. She had a real job, and then she had the job of managing these two mobile home parks.
Oh, yeah.
So she was not happy, not getting help from her spouse. And after sitting down with her, understanding what her problem was and what she wanted, I talked to her about seller financing. And she agreed to it. And after, we bought the property, made some improvements, owned it for about a year, and then we didn't want to hold it anymore. Primarily, you didn't want to hold it anymore.
Me?
So we got together, and I said, "Hey, let's see if we can sell this thing." Mm-hmm. And what we structured was another seller finance wrap that we wrapped around the wrap that we created.
It wrapped the wrap.
So there was what that amounts to is a daisy chain of seller financing, where the original sellers are making money, our seller made money, and we're making money. Mm-hmm. And the guys that bought it from us, they're making money every month.
Yeah.
And it all came about with some creative deal structuring.
And the crazy thing is you can't just go to any bank. There's no DSCR lender. There's no hard money lenders out there that I know of that are like, "Hey, we've got this mobile home park. Will you finance it?" Because it's such a niche asset class, and it's very commonly frowned upon from institutional capital. Unless it's this, large park, and you've got, but this was a small one, right? I love that deal too. That's one of my favorites. My favorite part was selling it.
Yeah, I agree.
What about your worst deal?
The worst deal goes back to what I was talking about earlier. The third house I bought, the biggest house, the biggest foundation problem I've ever come across. And this was 3 stories, 3,000 square feet on the side of a hill in Johnson City, Tennessee, a deck 40 feet above the,
Gosh.
Yeah. 15-foot tall cinder block walls, cracking on all 3 sides, shifting, sliding.
Why would you do that?
Glutton for punishment. I had made up my mind that I was never going to have a house with a bad foundation beat me again.
Yeah. Did you lose money on that?
Yeah, I ended up losing about almost $60,000 on that deal.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
You ate that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But it was like a 10-month process between when I bought it and when I sold it, and a lot of nights laying on the couch at about 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, wide awake, trying to figure out how I'm going to pay my private money lender back for this property.
That's what kept you up at night.
Kept me up at night.
How did you do it?
Well, eventually sold the property the property at a loss. Never missed a payment to my lender, and she got made whole at all said and done. Mm-hmm. And the most interesting thing was, I remember about an hour after closing on that, she called me up. She goes, "Jay, go find the next house. I believe in you." And those were great words, because that was the loss occurred over those 10 months. The relief happened the day of closing, right? Because it was finally done. I lost the money when I signed the papers to buy the property.
Yeah,
I just hadn't realized it yet.
Yeah.
So to know that I still had the backing of at least one person behind me felt pretty good, and you just keep going.
I just had one like that. We sold about 2 weeks ago, where the private lender got paid off. My first position debt got paid off, and I lost $23,000 on it. Mm-hmm. It's the nature of the business. I mean, if you're doing this long enough, like, you're going to have losses, especially in the beginning. I would imagine it was pretty relieving when she told you that. But what were you thinking going back to that moment? Were you done? Were you ready for the next one? What was going through your head?
No, I wasn't done. I knew that I had made a mistake. I went back, I traced back the mistake, right? The mistake was overlooking the advice of some outside people. There was a moment where I'd made the decision that the only way I was going to buy this property is if I took it over subject to from the seller, because I knew I had a lot of work ahead of me.
Yeah.
And the seller said no to that. And instead of me recognizing that, okay, I'd made a decision on, why I would move forward. This has presented itself. I'm not going to move forward. I decided that I was going to, I just overpowered myself and kept going, right? Made the decision that I was doing this deal.
I'm going to do it regardless.
So
there are times where that bullish mentality is necessary. And I think in the beginning of your career, you may not be able to distinguish whether it's you guys can't tell me what to do, or you actually heed the advice of those around you. That was one of those you probably should have listened.
Probably should have listened. And there's a difference between when your gut is telling you something and a sense of fear.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to discern between the two, because they're very different messages with very different sources. In this case, my gut was telling me, don't do this deal. It wasn't fear. But I used my head to overpower my gut and got myself in trouble.
Oof. How would you classify your level of risk tolerance?
On a scale of what?
1 to 10.
Well, I consider myself a cash flow investor, so I think that's probably in like the 3 or 4 out of 10, with 10 being commercial developer. Probably 3 or 4.
3 or 4.
Yeah.
You do have this strategy that the only people that I know doing that are the ones that are like 80 years old. They all have gray hair. And you have none.
No, I have none. I pulled it out with that house. What it comes down to is, I recognize what my goals were and why I got into real estate. And that was to create freedom, time freedom, lifestyle freedom, financial freedom. Yeah. And cash flow was what I identified as the vehicle to do that. So what is going to create the greatest amount of cash flow for me with the skills, the capability, the network, the capital that I have available, and the seller finance sale of these properties was that.
Yeah. This is not the strategy that you see from all the social media gurus preaching.
No.
Seller financing, because it's a get rich slow game. Why do you think it's not as attractive for most people? Why do you think it's not a mainstream strategy?
I think it's because there's a couple layers of complexity to it that seem intimidating to some people. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you were to just slow down a little bit, you'd be able to see that this isn't that difficult. It incorporates the same techniques that a wholesale strategy would use to acquire properties. Mm-hmm. It uses the same techniques and strategies and operations that a house flip requires. The difference being that on the dispo side, it's totally different, right? So instead of using a real estate agent to list this property on the MLS, I'm selling all these properties off market. And I'm doing most of the dispo work myself, right? Because my buyers, they're not searching the MLS for this. Most of my buyers come from Facebook Marketplace, Zillow.
You list it for sale by owner?
List it for sale by owner.
Yeah.
Yep. And the reason for that is there is a little more complexity than a typical sale. And you need to be able to communicate the extra steps and what is involved to your buyer.
Who's the avatar, the person who's buying these houses? Because if, anybody who's watching this, it's like, why would somebody come to you and give you a $25,000 down payment when they can, do things the traditional way and it's a 5% down payment? Like, who's that person that you're selling to?
Yeah. So these folks don't qualify or don't fit in the box of typical Fannie and Freddie guidelines. And there's multiple reasons for it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a 650 credit score, but they have good savings. Sometimes they don't have 2 years of tax returns if they're self-employed or just started a business. But whatever they're doing has spun off a lot of cash, so they have money for a down payment. People that are in the stages of rebuilding credit, people that come from countries where they don't trust banks. And if you look at the shady that Wells Fargo does and B of A does, is not trusting a bank that far-fetched?
No. I love a good conspiracy theory.
So for whatever reason, they don't fit inside the Fannie Freddie box. And this gives them an opportunity. Same thing, like I said earlier, if you're going to buy for $1,600 a month or rent for $1,600 a month, what would you do? And if you buy for $1,600 a month, okay, in 2 years, you get fix your credit, get your tax returns looking good. Go refinance with a bank at 5, 6, 6.75, 7% or whatever.
Yeah. What is a typical interest rate that you're selling these at?
10%.
10%.
Yeah. Just about every one of them.
Yeah.
10%. And, there's times where we'll use that as a negotiation tool. Sometimes people don't like the idea of 10%, and I'll negotiate a higher down payment in exchange for a lower interest rate. And folks that understand that realize that over the long term, that works out better for them.
Yeah. That's so cool because you're the bank. And there's multiple levers that you can pull to create a win-win deal outcome. Yep. For them, lower interest rate, for you, higher down payment. And you're giving somebody the ability to buy a house that otherwise wouldn't be able to with houses that are on the market. I think it's a fantastic strategy. Do you know, just off the top of your head, the size of the buyer pool compared to people who do qualify for financing versus those that don't qualify the traditional way?
Yes, I do. Yeah. So right now in America, somewhere between 65 and 70% of the population does not qualify for a Fannie or Freddie loan.
That money?
That's my buyer's pool. So you guys keep fighting over the 30% that do, and I'll keep working with the 70% that don't.
Wow. So you think it's that many people either just they don't have a high enough credit score, they don't have 2 years of income statements for their, self-employment. Like,
I don't think it. This is based on data.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's somewhere between 65 and 70%.
That's wild.
Yep.
How do you protect yourself to make sure that somebody doesn't come after you for, hey, this guy's charged me too much interest or whatever it is? We all know that lawsuits happen. What are some ways that you protect yourself and make sure that you're doing things correctly?
Yeah. So in 2013, the Dodd-Frank Act came out that basically set guidelines for some of this stuff. It limits what interest you can charge, and that moves with prime rate. It also requires that all of our buyer borrowers go through an ability to repay underwriting process where these folks don't have to check all the boxes of a typical Fannie Freddie underwrite, but these folks are producing income, tax, employment documents. There's a credit check. Basically, what we're making sure is that these folks demonstrate a track record of generating income adequate to make these, comfortably make these housing payments every month.
Yeah.
I don't want to take these houses back.
Yeah.
I want long-term homeowners.
Yeah.
And the pride that comes with it, the improvements to the communities of having homeowners versus renters.
Have you ever had somebody not go through with homeownership where you have to foreclose on them?
In 10 years, we've taken one back.
Oh, wow. That sounds like great numbers.
It's really good numbers. Yeah. And
either you're doing a great job underwriting these people or.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately it comes down to just making sure that you're setting these people up to win.
Yeah. How, I would assume you've gone through an eviction before, having to evict people. Going through the foreclosure, how does that, from the investor side, like going through evicting somebody, going through and doing a foreclosure, how do those compare?
Both painful, both annoying, timely, and costly, and everything else. So foreclosure is more expensive from the standpoint of, legal court costs, things like that. In my case, it took 5 months from the first missed payment 6 months from the first missed payment to us getting the house back. And we took the house back clean, spotless.
Wow.
Relisted it and made $70,000 more than we did the first time.
Yeah. And you kept the down payment from when they first bought it.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That was a good deal, a very good deal.
Yeah.
Probably an anomaly in the foreclosure universe.
Yeah.
And I've also
they left it clean.
They left it clean. Yeah. Like nothing was left behind.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. At the same time, I've had to do evictions and, you're looking at a $20,000 or $25,000 turnover to repair the damage and destruction that the previous tenants have done.
Yeah.
For what? For $200 a month in cash flow? No thanks.
No thanks. Ugh. So, what have been some of the most strategic relationships that have gotten you to where you are today?
Good question. A couple things come to mind. One of my first private lenders, key in sharing knowledge and opening my mind up to what was possible with the strategy. And then on top of that, I ended up borrowing money on different deals from her husband, her son, and both of her daughters.
Wow.
Yeah. Like I said, when you pay people back, they spread the word.
Yeah.
So that's been really cool, that relationship and working with that entire family. So that was key. And then just putting yourself around some other people in the business that have tips, tricks, tactics, connections has been real important, right? I mean, they say what your network is your net worth, and it's the truth.
Yeah. You've told me multiple times you go to this meetup that's in a McDonald's.
So one of the most creative minds in real estate that I've ever come across, his name is Pete Fortunato, lives in Madera Beach, Florida. And every Wednesday morning, he has he goes to this McDonald's there at the beach, and people travel in to meet with him there and just casually have coffee with him and ask questions. And
I remember there's a couple times when we were at CG and you're like, I was like, where did you go? And you're like, we went to
McDonald's. We went to McDonald's in Madera Beach. Yeah. To meet with Pete. He's, like I said, one of the most, if not the most creative real estate mind.
Super cool. You've also applied the seller financing to another big deal.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Storage facility. So I bought that with seller finance. So that's another one where when you get face to face with a seller, and you can ask and understand, what their goals are with the transaction. That gives you insights and inputs to craft a creative solution. So, my business partner in that deal, he had sent letters to local storage owners 2 years prior to this seller reaching back out.
Wow.
And met with the seller. She had owned the place for 20 plus years. She had done a good job of taking care of it, but everything was run out of a 5-inch thick 3-ring binder. Mm-hmm. No website, no marketing, no nothing. But she took care of it like it was her baby, and that was great.
Yeah.
But in meeting with her, her goal was, I just want to retire at the beach and be close to my grandkids. And from there, you ask the question like, hey, I've never received $1.3 million all at once before. Like, what are you going to do? You going to do something cool with it? And she's like, no, it's gonna go in the bank. Hmm. What's the bank paying in interest rates right now? At the time, it was like less than 1%. And you ask the question like, hey, is there any reason you'd say no if I was to pay a 5 or 6% on that money and you seller finance the property to us for 5 or 10 years? It's going to give you great cash flow in retirement. She was open to it.
Wow.
She said, sure, I'm open to it. And then I, structured a deal from there based on the financials of the property and what I felt was a very comfortable monthly payment to her, and presented the offer and some back and forth. And there we were.
Man.
Buying a self-storage facility.
Wow.
So that was cool. She got great terms. We got great terms, took over a property that was in pretty good shape, implemented, some modernization improvements to management, website, marketing, street rates.
Street rates?
All of the units were under rented.
Oh, yeah.
Significantly. Yeah. Right. So we were able to increase rents, increase street rates, and property's performing and performing pretty well. It's not meeting what I expected it to when I underwrote the thing.
Yeah, it'll get there. There's been a lot of strategies and different investment channels and things that I've learned over the years. Understanding and structuring deals, seller financed, from me purchasing or even offering seller finance on the sale, has probably been the most important strategy that I've learned. It's been the most impactful. Some of the best deals that I've done, even including the office that we're sitting in here, were purchased seller financed. And there's no way that I'd be able to put those deals together with whether it's a cash purchase or getting bank financing. Like, you go to a local bank, they want the blood rights to your third child, and they're going to give you an enema, and they're going to still tell you that you don't qualify, and then they want 60% down. Yeah. Like, it's unreal.
Yeah.
But you're able to. It's almost like decentralizing the banking system, and you're doing this peer-to-peer lending, which is super cool. And you're able to create win-wins with people who, I'm sure, the lady with your self-storage facility, she was used to those monthly payments coming in every single month. Mm-hmm. And then I bet that there's this change in somebody's thought process whenever they go from that into then they receive this giant lump sum of money that's just sitting in the bank. And there's probably a lot of fear surrounding taking from that because it's just dwindling that amount each month.
Yeah.
And so that the idea of having those monthly payments continue to come in and then a lump sum down the road as well is probably really attractive.
It definitely is. And it depends on the life situation of the seller or even like in my case, I've got my mother is retirement age, and her biggest fear is running out of money, like living longer than her savings. And in situations like that where, you can structure a deal with the seller where instead of giving her the golden egg, we create the golden goose. And that goose lays an egg every month.
Yeah.
And she can go spend every dollar of it every month, because on the first of the next month, there's another egg.
Yeah. It's awesome.
So it works really good. And same thing with a lot of my my private lenders on these on these seller finance deals is these folks they're looking for cash flow in retirement.
Yeah.
And we can do that without it chipping away at their principal. So it helps alleviate the concerns about outliving your savings.
Yeah. What a great way for somebody, if they got money sitting in the bank, to partner with somebody like you, because there's always risk in investing, right? But when you've got somebody who's got the track record of performance year over year, it seems like you got a great setup for people to invest. If somebody was curious about seller financing, notes, all that stuff, what are some resources that you would point them towards to learn more about it?
Sure. So a simple book to read is called Invest in Debt by Jimmy Napier. All right. It's got a big red, bright red cover to it. Pretty simple read, and it talks through some different strategies with the finance of real estate. I am beginning to grow a community on School called Real Estate Cash Flow Without Tenants.
Whoa.
And that is where I am working to educate people on this seller finance strategy, both as an operator like I am, or as an investor lender, like my financial backing is.
Yeah.
And sharing resources of everything I've learned over the last decade of doing this, and giving back a little bit.
It's awesome. Good deal. So looking back from 2015, Jay walking out your boss's office, I'm out. Peace.
Peace, I'm out.
And today, how has real estate changed your life?
Oh. I went from living in a zero-sum world where there are, for someone to win, someone has to lose, or for a raise to happen, there's got to be money in a budget, to this infinite world of abundance where you can actually tap into and connect with so many resources, whether it's network, knowledge, or capital. And it has been an amazing realization. And, granted, I've connected with that at such a small level, but to see what is actually out there and what is possible and what people can do when they step out of a scarcity world and into and embrace abundance.
Wow, that may be the best answer that I've gotten yet.
All right.
That was good. Did you practice that?
No, it's off the cuff.
Surely you practiced that. That was good. I'm going to steal that.
I'm going to need a YouTube short of that for my own stuff.
All right. If people want to keep up with you, learn more about, how do they get connected to your school group?
Yes, you can search on there, Real Estate Cash Flow Without Tenants. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Jay Chekansky, on LinkedIn, those places.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Enjoyed it.